And joining me now is Senate Majority Leader, Senator John Thune. Senator, thanks very much for joining us today.
Great to be with you. Thanks, Maria.
I want to begin, of course, with now the confirmed cabinet members, including the nation's new Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, the confirmed Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and my next guest coming up, the new confirmed Director of the CIA, John Ratcliffe, who we will get to shortly. Tell us what you're expecting in moving President Trump's agenda with these new confirmations.
Well, we need them in place, Maria. I think, as you know, in order to implement that agenda, you've got to have new leadership in those departments and agencies. And, of course, we're starting with the national security positions, which are critically important with everything that's going on in the world and everything that's going on at our southern border, which is why it was important that we get Governor Noem in at DHS. But as we move forward, we've got Treasury, Bessent coming up, Sean Duffy at DOT, a whole bunch more that we're teeing up to get done. And it's just really important that they get in place, Maria, because, you know, you have a window of time. This doesn't come along all that often and sometimes doesn't last that long. And so we want to make sure the president has his team in place so he's able to deliver on the agenda that he talked with the American people about and that they voted for in November.
Yeah, I'd like to look ahead to the confirmation hearings coming up, but I'm glad you mentioned timing. Because, Senator, why haven't we seen more confirmations sooner? It certainly feels like the 53 Senate majority Republicans are allowing the 47 Senate minority Democrats to confirm the confirmation hearing process. Is that right?
Well, actually, we're ahead of schedule. We're going back to what is the Obama standard. Obama got 12 of his cabinet nominees through in 15 days. It took Trump 43 days to get his first 12 through back in 2017. So we are pushing hard, and obviously there are constraints that are imposed by the rules of the Senate. The minority in the Senate has ways that can slow things down and drag it out. But we're actually, at the current point, ahead of the Obama standard. And so we're going to keep moving aggressively, moving quickly, forcing people to stay and to take votes on weekends, which we did this weekend. And we'll get them in place as quickly as we possibly can. But we are on the schedule that we laid out, and one that I think enables these folks to get through the process in time to deliver for the president, for the American people.
Okay, terrific. President Trump and the First Lady, of course, visiting storm-hit North Carolina and fire-ravaged Los Angeles, pledging to help. Tell me about that. How much aid are you expecting to commit to the California wildfires, and how did that change the conversation and the plans on your upcoming reconciliation?
Well, we just did, as you know, a big package for North Carolina before the end of the year, and so we've sort of replenished, refilled the FEMA account, and we'll see what the request comes in from California. But obviously, the Trump team will have to vet that, determine what they want to ask Congress for in terms of resources. And I suspect there's going to be a lot of scrutiny given to make sure that we're doing this in a way that is responsive to the need in California, but also responsive and responsible to the American taxpayer. So we'll take a look at that. What can ride on that, we will see. Obviously, we have to finish up all the spending bills from last year because the Democrats left us with that mess. We have a pile up at the end of the year. We haven't even funded, FY25, which we're currently in the middle of. And then we've got the fiscal year 26 budget. We got reconciliation, which is the vehicle that enables us to get a lot of things, the things that we want to get done on energy, on the economy, on the border, on military readiness. Those are all things that are sitting ahead of us here, Maria, and we're going to work aggressively to get it all done. But it's not obviously going to be easy, and how it all gets packaged together is still something that we are discussing with the president and his team and with our colleagues in the House of Representatives.
So would the conversation change with the amount of money needed for Los Angeles? President Trump the other day said the California wildfires changed everything.
I think that it did, and obviously it's a timing issue, and we have a lot of stuff, as I said, stacked up. We have a March 14th deadline that if we don't fund the government for this current year that we're in, the government shuts down. We got the reconciliation hanging out there. We got a debt limit we've got to deal with, and so how we piece it together and put it together is a subject of conversation right now. But I can assure you one thing: we will be working together as a team in a unified way to make sure that we deliver for the American people, address the needs that are out there in some of these really disaster-damaged areas, but also make sure that we're addressing the concerns the American taxpayers have about the amount of spending in Washington, D.C. in these last few years under Biden and Harris, and getting us on a different fiscal track.
Absolutely. And of course, that includes the tax policy part of this as well.
Right.
Let me get your take on the appropriate offsets that you would consider. Given now you've got some of your colleagues saying, I cannot vote for the tax portion of whether it's a funding bill or a reconciliation bill unless an increase in the SALT deduction is included.
Right, and the so-called SALT caucus is, pressing hard to obviously get a change in that. We're looking at, in the context of tax reform in the big package, obviously extending the current existing tax law, some other things that the president's talked about, and hopefully a reconciliation bill will also include a significant amount of spending cuts, among other things, energy policy, all things border policy that we want to get done through reconciliation, which enables us in the Senate to do it at a 51 vote majority instead of 60, which is what the more typical scenario is in the Senate. But all those things are going to have to be packaged together. And I guess my hope is that as we move through this process, we will do it in a way that enables us to get all the votes that we need in the House of Representatives, and it's a narrow margin there, including the SALT caucus on board with whatever it is we do. But we need to make sure that we are delivering on for the American people and preventing what will be a $4.5 trillion tax increase next year if we don't act by the end of the year. So we are on task on that, and moving forward, how we do it is still a matter of conversation.
Are you considering specific offsets?
Well, we are. Obviously, there's a long list of things that we're looking at, and again, it becomes a function. The number you have to pay attention to in the House is 218, and in the Senate it's 51, because it's how much can you do and still get the votes that are necessary to pass something in both the House and the Senate. I'm somebody who likes to go big and bold. We don't get this opportunity very often, and like I said earlier, it sometimes doesn't last very long, where you have unified control of the government and an opportunity to use budget reconciliation. So we should use it aggressively on tax policy, on energy policy, on border policy, and on the military, as we have talked about doing, and ensure that all those things get done in a way that keeps America safe, make sure that America is ready to deal with whatever crisis we face around the world, strengthens our economy, and makes us energy dominant. I mean, these are all things, objectives, again, the president has articulated that he campaigned on, the American people expect us to deliver. And so we are in the process of figuring that out and trying to determine, again, the two numbers to remember, 218 in the House, 51 in the Senate. That's, in the end, that's what it's going to take to get this done.
Senator, as we close out here, what do you want to say about the bold agenda President Trump has put forth? I'm just back from the World Economic Forum, where we heard incredible optimism, and the president has talked about the Panama Canal, Greenland. He's also talked about changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. In just a few days, of course, also including announcing $1.1 trillion in new investment into America, $600 billion by the Saudis alone. I just want to get your take on what is needed now with regard to defense, given the national security concerns around Pete Hegseth's confirmation. What are you looking for in terms of specifics in bulking up America's defense?
Well, obviously, our Navy, and if you look at the number of ships we have relative to our adversaries, particularly China, that's something the president is interested in, an American Iron Dome concept. But frankly, the thing we've got to do, Maria, is we've got to increase the top line. We have underfunded, and in the Biden budget, there wasn't a single Biden budget that kept up with the rate of inflation when it comes to the military. And so we've got some making up to do. We need to spend it wisely and well and make sure that we're investing in our military in a way that keeps our warfighter capable for whatever the threat metrics is out there that we're dealing with. But, in the end, it's all about keeping the country strong economically, and the things that the president is doing and the things he's talking about. I think there's a very compelling argument on Panama, a very compelling argument on Greenland, and an optimism in America that we haven't seen in a long time. I think this has been a sluggish country, a country that's been bogged down under the weight of government regulation and red tape and taxation. And this is a president and a team working with him in the House and the Senate that wants to liberate the American people and investors. I mean, one of the reasons you see other countries, Saudis and others, wanting to invest in America is because they see America now as an attractive place to invest, knowing full well that they're going to have a different environment, economic environment to deal with when it comes to taxes and regulation and energy and a whole range of other issues. We want America to be the magnet, and I think that with these policies it will be.
That is just terrific, Senator. Real quick on Scott Bessent, how important will the crypto legislation be in next week's hearing?
Well, I think that obviously crypto is playing an increasingly important role in our economy. There's a lot of interest in how do we legislate around it, create sort of a framework for digital currencies to expand and grow. And we're considering that. There are a couple of legislative solutions that have been proposed, and clearly Secretary Bessent will have a lot to say about what that looks like. And so we'll be working closely with him and with the President and his team to fashion something that addresses the crypto world and what has become an increasingly, I think, attractive place for a lot of Americans and other people around the world to invest.
Senator, it's great to have you today. Thanks so much. We'll be watching your work, sir.
Thanks, Maria. See ya.
Thank you. Senate Majority Leader John Thune.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.